All right, it is that time of the year. January means getting your seeds ready and ordered. Also, getting it planned out in your calendar so that you never miss a plant date and you know when things should be ready to harvest. So I've got my seeds in the mail and I'm gonna show you how we organize and get ready for the garden season. You're going to start by going to almanac.com. Scroll down until it says go down past calendar, and you're going to go all the way down until it shows you the calendar, and click on get your planting dates. Here you can enter your zip code and it will pull up not only your planting zone but also all of the different plants that you could most likely plant, as well as when you should plant them. When you get your seed packets, almost all of the information you're going to need should be on your seed packet. So here you can see I've ordered my Georgia Southern collards. Collards for us are typically an early spring or a fall crop. They don't love super hot weather. They bolt quicker, which means they go to seed faster. And then also we get these great caterpillars that just love to mow them down. So you can see here it shows you that it takes 70 to 79 days for these to go to full maturity, meaning you will most likely not be able to pick them in less than approximately 80 days. They tell you when to sow. So you can either start these outside. If you were to just direct sow, you would put these outside in early spring or in late summer. Again, we do late summer here. Our springs are a little too unpredictable, and because often in Georgia we go from winter to summer seemingly overnight, I don't have the best luck with growing collards in the spring. I have a much better luck planting them in late summer, which for me is about August, and then harvesting them in the fall. This also shows that where you can start them early inside, 4 to 6 weeks before the final frost, plant them, how to plant them, how long they should take to germinate, and then to water them regularly. So this is everything I'm going to need on how to plant these. So let's assume that I was going to plant these for the spring. Okay, so doing that, I would need to take my calendar. I know that my last frost date is here. It is on April the 5th. So what I would need to do then is I would want to go ahead and get these started 4 to 6 weeks before this final frost date. So essentially I'm going to want to plant these collards for about the end of February, maybe even that first week of March. But this would be to start them indoors under grow lights so that I could have a transplant established so that I could plant them outside in the dirt as a small plant, not as a seed. If you are going to go ahead and do them in the fall, you could just direct sow them into the ground, and they would have enough warmth and water and sunlight to germinate, which is what we do. The next thing I'm going to want to do in my calendar is go 70 to 79 days. So I typically go for the longer date. I usually don't use the shorter date. I've just found luck that it's usually this longer date so that I can have an idea of when I'm going to harvest these. So if I were to plant these say in August, let me find August in my calendar here. If I were to plant these in August 1st, then I would need to allow essentially 10 weeks to harvest them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I would be looking at an October 10th harvest date if I were to plant those on August the 1st. Now, generally, your harvest date isn't particularly important unless you're trying to plant it to be before a frost. So I happen to know that our first frost for this year is predicted to be November the 1st. So any plants that would not survive a frost, I'm going to want to make sure that I get in the ground and have established with enough time for them to reach full maturity before the November frost. Collard greens actually do taste much better after the first frost. The cold, the extreme cold gives them the sugars, it pulls the sugars up into their leaves. So for me, having these go longer isn't such a big deal because a light frost isn't going to kill them. For a plant like pumpkins, however, pumpkins have a seasonal date per se. So typically down south, people start decorating for fall around September 1st. So what I need to do, I know that pumpkins take approximately 120 days to mature. So that's almost 4 months. And so when I am planting, I'm actually going to start my pumpkins with my harvest date in mind. I want all of my pumpkins to be ready by September the 1st so that I can sell them for people who are wanting to use them for decorating or to make pumpkin pies or jack-o'-lanterns or things like that. So I'm actually going to use my harvest date as my guide for my pumpkins, and I'm going to go 4 months back, and I'm going to want to start these pumpkins in May so that I have plenty of time to get the plants established, get the pumpkins growing, and have them ready by September 1st. Now, if I have some pumpkins that are really young and they're not quite ready by September 1st, my entire plant isn't going to have every single pumpkin ready on it. But I do know that by September 1st, I want at least 50% of my pumpkins to be ready to pick, cure, and to be sold in our local community. So I'm going to create my planting calendar around that. Okay, so what seeds should you be looking at starting right now? If you are planning to do tomatoes or peppers from seed, right now is the time to get those started. Peppers take, in my experience, an inordinately long time to sprout. Typically, if you look on the seed packages, they say that they take about the same time as tomatoes, usually somewhere in that 70 to 75 day range. However, last year we learned that our pepper plants took almost twice as long as our tomato plants to sprout. So, for example, I have some tomato seeds here. These are my big beef hybrid tomato seeds. I love these. We grew these last year. They're big slicing tomatoes. They did really well. And so on here, it says that they take 73 days. Well, in my experience, they take a little bit longer than that. So I'm going to go ahead and get those started and get them under my grow light so that they have plenty of time to be as big as they need to be for me to transplant them by April the 5th, our last frost date. I'm gonna have to watch and see what our weather looks like, because although April 5th is predicted to be our last frost date, the last few years of gardening, it really hasn't gotten warm enough to transplant the tomatoes and the peppers, both of which like hotter weather, until almost Mother's Day, which is almost a month later. So when I get these things started, I am going to go ahead and get them started in containers that they're going to be able to grow into, and be ready to transplant these seedlings and upplant them into bigger containers. So that way, if the weather isn't quite warm enough when April 5th rolls around, which, like I said, it hasn't been in the past couple years, then they're still okay to stay under grow lights, or at least kind of go in and out under my shed where they would be protected from super cold weather and any late frost we might have, until I have a consistent temperature of at least 55 to 65 degrees outside, where I can safely plant them and not have to worry about them being hurt as young plants. One of the best things you can do to ensure a successful planting season is to get a calendar. Whether you use a planner like I do, or just print a blank calendar off the internet and fill in your seed information there, either way, this is going to be a lifesaver for you. It is the easiest way to keep track of what needs to be planted, when it needs to be planted, and about how long you're gonna have to wait to harvest it. Like I said, harvest dates aren't always a big deal unless you're growing something seasonal like pumpkins, but at least giving yourself an idea of when things should be ready, and always knowing when to put things in, because there's nothing more disappointing than putting in plants too late and having them hit by a frost, or having the heat set in too soon and losing those cooler weather plants to heat or bugs or whatever. I hope this video was helpful. Please give it a like and a subscribe, and stay tuned because we will be sharing our seed growing setup, how we start our seeds indoors, in the next video. Bye.